Second news item I wanted to get into, Joshua, because we've talked a lot about Group of Five realignment, and there have been waves of it because the Pac-12 added 4 Mountain West schools a couple weeks ago, and then basically was like, hey, we're open for business. We're looking around. We're trying to determine, are we staying, regional, or are we trying to go national and, kind of cut out the legs from underneath of the American Conference? Well, as it turns out, they were not able to get those schools to come on board. So Memphis, Tulane, USF, and UTSA all recommit to the American this week. That's when it starts to get interesting. And Joshua, I know we were texting as this was all unfolding. So then the Mountain West, so I'm like talking to everyone in the American, right? So then that gets resolved. Then you start texting everyone in the Mountain West and in the Pac-12. And the idea was there was this 5 p.m. Mountain Time deadline on Monday to like sign a grant of rights, sign it. You basically like contractually tie yourself back to the Mountain West. They would need all 8 to do that because you need to have 8 schools to be a conference. So a bunch of people are like, yeah, I'm going to commit. I'm going to sign. I'm going to do this, whatever. Mountain West is like, we're waiting. We don't have everyone yet. We're still waiting to hear. Then Utah State is like, hey, we're out. We got an invite to the Pac-12 and we're taking it. So again, that gets you to 7, even if everyone else signs this stuff. What that does is it reopens the conversation for UNLV, who has a Pac-12 offer in hand of, hey, maybe like now do you want to go? Like everyone is not staying in the Mountain West. Like that ship has sailed. The rock has been dislodged there. And that also reopens Air Force's opportunities, with the Pac-12 or with the American, which we've talked about as well. Because if the Mountain West doesn't exist, or if it's being severely diminished, maybe you're going to look around again, even though you've recommitted or we're planning to recommit to the league. Now there might not be a league. So Joshua, this has just been an absolute chaotic story all week. And then it ends with the Mountain West, the Pac-12 suing the Mountain West saying, hey, we signed this contract with you last year or earlier this year to do a scheduling agreement for football for this season. In that agreement, we agreed to like all of these poaching penalties. Like, hey, if we add 1 school from the Mountain West, we have to pay you X, 2 schools X. So for 5 schools, which is the number we're at through Utah State as we're recording this, in case it changes, it's $55 million. So that's on top of exit fees. They're saying, hey, that's actually illegal. That's an antitrust violation and we shouldn't have to pay you at all. So it's wild, Joshua. There's just so many twists and turns. It's kind of like Real Housewives. I know you love your Real Housewives shows. A little bit of reality TV vibes here.
Yeah. For those who aren't watching, I threw my hands in the air because it's absolutely crazy what's going on here. And I do want to clarify one thing right now. As we're speaking, the Pac-12 and the Mountain West are both at 7 right now.
Yes.
Okay. And so 7 is not the magic number, by the way. They need to be at 8. So this is like another layer of kind of craziness because both of them are going to want to be at 8. So a lot of decisions to be made here. The thing that I'm super interested in, and just because it's the landscape of college football right now. And by the way, it's the landscape of society. We live in a litigious society. Americans love suing people. The lawsuit is the thing that I'm looking out for because I do think that there has been this shift in the mentality surrounding collegiate athletics where now we are talking about antitrust and we are talking about some of the business practices that have prevented a free market from existing and from particularly player movement. And now we're talking about movement of institutions within the infrastructure of the sport. I'm curious to see what the courts have to say about that because I do think it's going to be a huge deal with ripple effects. Like if now it's a little bit easier for some of these schools to move around, like we're talking pure chaos.
Right. And basically, I guess what their argument is that this is anti-competitive because these are peer conferences and you're restricting their movement. To me, again, we'll see how the legal stuff plays out. You willingly signed this contract. A lot of the schools that are now on the other side signed it to help protect the Mountain West. Like to me, it was a very reasonable piece of the contract when you're trying to help the Pac-12 schools, Pac-2 schools have a football schedule, but guard against this exact situation that's happening right now with financial penalties. So I don't know if it's just a lawsuit to try to get to a settlement and try to like negotiate that number down, But to me, like, it makes sense. And again, I guess we'll see about legally, but like the idea of like, hey, I'll do this for you, but you can't immediately backstab me.
Okay, so I'm with you on that in terms of where they might be trying to go, but I think the idea of we enter into an agreement that was illegal was the whole crux of the House case, and the idea that it was illegal to begin with to restrict student athletes from using their NIL, regardless of how many student athletes for ages agreed to doing it. The point is they should have never been able to enter into such an agreement, and that's why I'm curious to see what the courts have to say.
Okay, lawyer Joshua,
I'm
that is
not
a
a
very
lawyer.
good
I've
point.
never been a lawyer, but this whole thing is intriguing to me. You're right. It's
No,
like
it is.
Housewives. I love reality TV.
It is. It is. No, but that's a really good point. Again, and you could have had a party sign that contract believing that that clause was unenforceable, right? And then that this was going to be an outcome. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to see. Joshua's point is correct. 7-7. You basically have two Mountain West conferences right now, and a lot of money owed in exit fees and penalties and lawyer fees to basically just restructure the same schools together, but without certain schools. It's kind
Oh,
of crazy.
Nicole, it's hilarious, is what it is.
It is really something. We'll continue to track that as well. And like I said, keep an eye on Air Force to the American because that is also still in play.